They took an oath to heal, but some used their scalpel to torture, experiment, and kill. These weren't just doctors. They were monsters in lab coats, hiding behind science. Today we step into their operating rooms, and into the darkest corners of the human mind. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today, we're diving into the minds of history's most twisted doctors. Like seriously, we're talking about the worst of the worst. Doctors are supposed to heal and cure, and it's a big responsibility. But if the wrong people get the job, terrible things can happen, as the lives of people are on the line. So grab a drink or a snack and settle in, because this is going to be a long, wild ride through the life of three of the most twisted doctors that ever lived. Let's start at the beginning. Josef Mengele wasn't born with a pitchfork in his hand, or at least not obviously so. He came into the world on March 16, 1911, in Günzburg, a picturesque little town in Bavaria, Germany. His family was well off. His father, Karl, ran a successful business making farming equipment, a company that's still around today, though they'd rather you didn't bring up Josef. His mother, Walburga, was a strict Catholic, and Josef was the eldest of three boys. Picture a quiet German town, a prosperous family, and a kid who seemed destined for a normal life. So how does that kid grow up to become one of history's most notorious villains? Germany in the early 20th century was a mess. World War I had just ended. The Treaty of Versailles crushed the economy, and people were desperate. Into this chaos steps young Joseph, a bright, ambitious guy with a passion for science. He wasn't just smart, he was driven. By his 20s, he was studying medicine and anthropology at the University of Munich. In 1935, he earned a PhD in physical anthropology, fancy stuff about human skulls and racial differences. Sounds innocent enough, right? Well, hold that thought, because things are about to twist. The 1930s in Germany weren't just about science, they were about ideology. Hitler's Nazi Party was on the rise, preaching racial superiority, and Josef was all in. In 1931, he joined the Stahlhelm, a right-wing paramilitary group that later got folded into the Nazis' SA, the Brown Shirts. By 1937, he was working at the Institute for Hereditary Biology and Racial Hygiene in Frankfurt, under Ottmar von Verschuer, a leading geneticist obsessed with twins and purifying the human race. This wasn't just a job for Mengele, it was a calling. He bought into the Nazi pseudoscience hook, line, and sinker, believing Aryans were the master race and everyone else was disposable. When World War II kicked off in 1939, Mengele didn't sit on the sidelines. He joined the SS, the elite Nazi force, and by 1941, he was on the Eastern Front as a medical officer. This wasn't a cushy desk job. He was in the thick of it, even earning an Iron Cross for bravery after pulling wounded soldiers out of a burning tank. Yeah, the guy who'd later become a symbol of evil started out looking like a war hero, but the front lines weren't where he would make his mark. In 1943, everything changes. Mengele gets injured, and instead of going back to the battlefield, he's assigned to Auschwitz, the Nazis' most infamous death camp. He arrives on May 30th, 1943, as an SS captain, and steps into a role that'll define his legacy. Picture this: trains rolling in, packed with terrified people, Jews, Roma, and anyone the Nazis deemed undesirable. Mengele's there on the platform, dressed in his crisp SS uniform, calm as can be, deciding who lives and who dies with a flick of his hand. To the left, the gas chambers. To the right, the camp, maybe a little more time before death. Survivors said he'd whistle classical music while he worked, like it was just another day at the office. But Mengele wasn't just there to sort people. He had bigger plans, sick, twisted plans. He becomes the camp's chief physician at Auschwitz II, or Birkenau, and starts chasing his obsession: human experiments. See, Mengele wasn't your average doctor. He saw Auschwitz as a giant lab, and the prisoners? They were his test subjects. Fair warning, this part's tough to hear. If you're squeamish, maybe skip this part, because this is the core of why Mengele's name still haunts us. Mengele was obsessed with twins. Why? Because he thought they held the key to unlocking genetic secrets. Secrets he could use to boost the Aryan race. He'd scour the arriving trains for twins, pulling kids as young as 2 or 3 away from their parents. Survivors say he'd charm them at first, handing out candy, calling himself Uncle Mengele. But that charm was a mask. Once he had them, the horror began. He'd inject chemicals into their eyes to try changing the color. Think about that, injecting dye into a child's eyeball just to see what happens. He'd sew twins together, back to back, to create conjoined siblings. Most died from infection or shock. He'd amputate limbs without anesthesia, inject diseases like typhus or tuberculosis, then dissect them after they died to compare organs. And it wasn't just twins. He experimented on people with dwarfism, Roma prisoners, or anyone with a unique trait like heterochromia, different colored eyes. One survivor, a Hungarian Jew named Miklos Nisli, was forced to assist Mengele and later wrote about seeing piles of bodies, kids he'd killed for his research. Mengele didn't just experiment on the living either. He'd murder prisoners, sometimes with a phenol injection straight to the heart, then dissect them to study their insides. His goal was to prove Nazi racial theories and maybe figure out how to make Aryan women have more babies. It was pseudoscience wrapped in cruelty, and it's estimated thousands died at his hands. Though we'll never know the exact number because he burned most of his records when the war started turning against the Nazis. Now, you might be wondering, how does someone do this and sleep at night? Was he a madman? A psychopath? Historians still debate it, but one thing's clear. Mengele didn't see his victims as human. To him, they were tools for his twisted mission. But the war doesn't last forever, and neither does his time at Auschwitz. By January 1945, the Red Army's closing in on Auschwitz. Mengele knows the game's up, so he grabs what he can, some records, his precious research, and he escapes. The camp's liberated on January 27th, and he's gone, blending into the flood of fleeing Nazis. Here's where it gets wild. He doesn't even leave Germany right away. He's captured by the Americans, but get this, he's using his real name, and they simply let him go. Why? The Allies didn't have a full list of war criminals yet, and Mengele slips through the cracks. For a while, he hides out as a farmhand near his hometown, Günzburg. His family knows where he is. His wife even visits him. If anyone had really looked, they could have nabbed him. But in 1949, with help from a shadowy Nazi network, some say it was Odessa, an underground group, he gets fake papers and hops a ship from Genoa, Italy to Argentina. Buenos Aires becomes his new home, and he's not exactly laying low. He's in the phone book under his own name. He remarries, lives comfortably, even runs a carpentry business. The guy who tortured thousands is now sipping coffee in South America like nothing happened. But the world doesn't forget. By the 1950s, Nazi hunters like Simon Wiesenthal and even Israel's Mossad are on his trail. In 1960, they snag Adolf Eichmann in Argentina, another big Nazi fish. But Mengele? He's slippery. He travels to Paraguay, then Brazil, and he's always one step ahead. He's paranoid, sure, using aliases like Wolfgang Gerhard, but he's never caught. On February 7, 1979, while swimming off a beach in Bertioga, Brazil, he suffers a stroke and drowns. He's buried under a fake name, and that's it. Mengele dies a free man at 67. After his death, his body was exhumed in 1985, and DNA tests in 1992 confirmed it was him. His family back in Germany stayed quiet, and his research? Most of it was destroyed or debunked as useless garbage. But the questions he left behind don't fade. How far can science go before it loses its soul? Mengele called himself a doctor, a scientist, but his work was torture dressed up as research. Survivors like Eva Kor, a twin who endured his experiments, spent their lives wrestling with what he did. Eva forgave him, not for his sake, but for her own peace. Others couldn't. His name still lingers in books, movies, even wild rumors, like claims he caused a twin boom in a Brazilian village, which, by the way, has been debunked. What hasn't been debunked is the warning. When ideology twists science and power erases empathy, that's when you get a man like Mengele. Mengele's life is a puzzle, part ambition, part madness, and all evil. He escaped justice, but history won't let him rest. What do you think? How could someone like him evade capture for so long? Was he a product of his time, or something darker? H. Holmes came into the world as Herman Webster Mudgett on May 16, 1861, in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. Small town, big woods, quiet life, sounds idyllic, right? His family wasn't poor. His dad was a farmer and postmaster, his mom a devout Methodist. But young Herman wasn't your average kid. There are whispers he was a loner, maybe bullied. And here's where it gets creepy. Some say he was caught dissecting animals as a boy. Now that's not hard proof of anything, but it plants a seed, doesn't it? A hint of something off. Herman was smart, really smart. By 1878, he's married to a woman named Clara Lovering, and he's off to the University of Michigan's medical school. This is the 1880s, cadavers are hard to come by, and grave robbing is a thing. Rumor has it Herman got a taste for scams here, allegedly stealing bodies, faking deaths, and cashing in on insurance policies. No one's nailed that down as fact, but it fits the guy he'd become. He graduates in 1884, a doctor at 23, and then, poof, he vanishes from New Hampshire, leaving Clara behind. Enter H. Holmes, the name he picks up as he drifts west, a fresh alias for a fresh start. By 1886, he's in Chicago, a city on fire with growth, thanks to the Industrial Revolution and the upcoming 1893 World's Fair. It's chaotic, crowded, perfect for a man like Holmes to blend in. He lands a job at a drugstore owned by a guy named Dr. E.S. Holton. When Holton dies, Holmes charms the widow, takes over the business, and surprise, she disappears. Did he kill her? No proof, but the pattern's starting. He's got money now, and he's got bigger plans. Picture this. Chicago's Englewood neighborhood, 1880s. Holmes buys a lot across from the drugstore and starts building. Not just any building, a 3-story monster with shops on the ground floor, apartments above, and a maze of hidden rooms, trapdoors, and chutes in between. This is the murder castle, though it wasn't called that yet. He hires workers, fires them quick, keeps switching contractors so no one sees the full picture. Why? Because this isn't a hotel, it's a death trap. Soundproof rooms, gas lines he can control, a basement big enough to cremate a body. He's not just a con man anymore. He's designing a slaughterhouse. How does he lure people in? Charm and opportunity. Holmes was handsome. He had dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and he was a smooth talker. He'd advertise jobs for young women, secretaries, maids, fresh off trains, new to the city, no one to miss them. He'd rent rooms to fairgoers later on, folks dazzled by Chicago's white city, not suspecting the devil next door. And then there were the lovers, women like Julia Smythe, a drugstore worker's wife he seduced. When she got pregnant, he promised to marry her if she'd let him fix it. She and her daughter Pearl vanished during Christmas 1891. No bodies, just gone. Here's where it gets greedy though. Holmes didn't just kill, he profited. He'd take out insurance on victims, stage their deaths, collect the cash. He would dissect some, selling skeletons to medical schools. Ironic for a doctor, right? Others, he'd burn or dissolve in acid. How many died? No one knows for sure. Holmes later claimed 27, but historians think it could be dozens, maybe over 200. The murder castle was his playground. Secret staircases, peepholes, a greased chute to the basement. One worker who stuck around said he found a footprint burned into the floor, like someone tried to claw their way out of a locked room. But Holmes wasn't invincible. By 1893, the fair's in full swing, and he's juggling scams. Creditors are sniffing around, bodies are piling up. He torches the castle for insurance money, but the fire doesn't destroy it completely. Suspicions are growing, so he skips town with a partner in crime, Benjamin Pitezel. The plan? Fake Pitezel's death, split the payout. Except Holmes doesn't fake it. He actually kills Pitezel, then burns the body, and collects $10,000. Then he takes Pitezel's kids, Alice, Nellie, Howard, on a cross-country run, promising their mom they're fine. They're not. Howard disappears in Indiana, and the girls' bodies turn up later in Toronto, stuffed in a trunk. This is what gets him caught. Detective Frank Geyer tracks him down, relentlessly piecing together train tickets, letters, and lies. In 1895, Holmes is nabbed in Boston. The press goes wild. Dr. Death, they call him. Chicago cops raid the castle, find bones, bloodstains, a vault with gas pipes. His trial is a circus. Holmes defends himself at first, claiming innocence. But the evidence, Pittel's murder, the kids, nails him. May 7th, 1896, Philadelphia. He's hanged at Moyamensing prison. Even then, he's cool as ice, joking with the hangman. After he's gone, the castle's torn down, and today it's a post office. No plaque, just ghosts. His grave? He begged to be buried in concrete because he was scared of grave robbers. Poetic irony there. In 2017, they dig him up, and yep, the DNA tests say that it's him. But the questions linger. What made Holmes tick? Was it greed, control, some broken piece inside? He wrote a confession, but it was wild, exaggerated, and unreliable. Psychologists guess he was a sociopath, charming, remorseless, like a predator in a bow tie. Survivors like Minnie Williams' sister who lost her to him never got closure. The fair's glow faded, but Holmes's shadow stuck. Think about this. A doctor trained to heal chooses to kill, not in war, but in peace, for profit and pleasure. What does that say about trust? About the masks people wear? Holmes turned a city's dream into a nightmare, and we're still picking apart the why. What do you think? How many did he really kill? Was he born evil or made that way? It's hard to believe that some of these people were once seen as respected doctors. Their actions remind us that power and trust in the wrong hands can lead to terrifying consequences. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, feel free to drop a like. Let me know in the comments, which dark topic should I cover next? And also subscribe for more deep dives into strange and unsettling history. See you next time.